Welcome back, everybody. Thank you again for joining me here today. The main piece today is going to be the Salt Graduation Tower that I have so often mentioned and teased, but have not actually gotten around to showcasing. It was a suggestion from Cryostratos, is his name. I keep wanting to say Cryostasis every time I look at it, but that is not his name, or their name, rather. They're a cool individual. They've interacted with me a couple of times and have made several suggestions. The one that I did first was the Salt Graduation Tower. Absolutely loved the suggestion. Really made sense. I wish it was an actual mechanic in the game. And so we're going to show that off today. I'm going to talk a little bit about the process. And then I'm sure whenever I tag him in the video, he's going to have even more information to share down in the comments if he feels so obliged. He's the one who suggested it. And apparently they're pretty big where he's from. I'm assuming somewhere in Central Eastern Europe. They're really common in like Germany and Poland, from what I've researched. But additionally, there was another suggestion given to me, which we're kind of sitting in the middle of right now, by a user named Your Personal Shadow. So thank you again for following me, watching that video and putting that comment there and making the suggestion. And now I have it, tangible, manifested in front of you to show off to you. It's not exactly what you suggested. You did suggest that I do this near the town. However, the estate that my wife and I have built is very cluttered, and so it just made more sense, I felt like, to put this somewhere else on the road, not too far away, but a little further away, just to kind of give us another point of interest along our road to like look at and maybe stop at, have some storage there or something. It's typical for me, even if something is mostly decoration, I still try to have some function tied to it. Even if its primary purpose is to look nice, and that's its main function, I do think it's nice to have a little bit of storage or a crafting station or some other type of, in-game mechanic or functionality attributed to that place. Just a little bit of my thought process there. Before we begin, I'm going to show off this build here real quick because it is a rather smaller one. I don't think it quite deserves a whole video unto itself. So right after the intro, we'll just dive right into this and then move to the Salt Graduation Tower. But as a little bit of a disclaimer, in case you haven't noticed, I am a bit of a rambler. It's just the way I am. It's how I process and share information. I get that that is not everybody's cup of tea, and it might even be abrasive to some of y'all's attention spans. No harm, no foul. So feel free to bounce around the video back and forth as you need, just to find the interesting parts or the parts that are relevant to what you're here for. None of this is going to be a tutorial. It's going to be more like a here's what I've done with the tools available and my level of air quote expertise, and you guys are free to take from that whatever you will. If you want to do a one-to-one copy, go right ahead. I try to stop at all kinds of points throughout the video to like pause and let you take screenshots or whatever to look at it. But if you want me to go into more in-depth tutorial-esque videos, I am more than willing to do that. Just say the word and I'll show you how to do it. But typically, I don't want you to copy one-to-one exactly how I do it. I want you to adapt it to your style, to your situation, to your setting. Make it better, make it different, make it yours. And then show me. I do love having that stuff shown to me, having the feedback. And then, like, let's say I inspire you, and then you do something cool that's even better, and then I see it. Now I'm inspired. And it's a nice positive feedback loop. And I think most interactions, conversations, and community relationships should be positive feedback loops. So thank you to everybody, Your Personal Shadow, Cryostatos, and SNES is the best, I think is his name. He's the one who suggested the fishing shack, the last video. So thank you guys so much for that. If you, watching this video, dear viewer, have any suggestions for me, or if there's anything in the background of the video that you want me to take a closer look at that I haven't already covered in another video, let me know down in the comments, and I'm, again, more than happy to do it. Don't forget, please remember to like, subscribe, all that good stuff. It does help with the algorithm, but I am mostly just here to wax philosophically about my building process. So let's go ahead and dive right into that, shall we? I don't even need to edit the intro into anything special. We can just go right into here. Look at that nice intro. That was a nice edit. Thanks, chat. Okay, so this is just off one of our dirt paths here. Dirt? I don't know why I said it like that. One of our dirt paths over here. And it's just in a... I don't know, this seemed like a pretty good starter location. This is somewhere where I was thinking, where would I put down my starter base? Because this is actually one of the regions where my wife and I thought about settling down. We just ultimately ended up in the hot springs area because we wanted to mess around with the hot springs. So we skipped this and went over yonder. But if we were to be here, it probably would have been something like this. Just a simple shack with a cooking station and then like a bed over here. A little bit of floor space for like, clay forming and knapping tools. I imagine there would have been a vessel or something underneath here, which is why there's this dilapidated hay bale. Hay bale? I hate saying it like that. It sounds so redneck. But I digress. I also kind of treated this like, I don't know, a little bit of an experiment in like the structure. Like what kind of beams and posts and lashings and stuff can go together to make it look structural. Big fan of the beam tool. It does have its limitations, but then taking quarter logs and chiseling the planks down and everything like that, it does have a nice effect. I did kind of do it as well in the wall, although with this type of construction you probably wouldn't, because rammed earth builds literally are just walls of dirt packed down on top of itself over and over again until it just forms a solid vertical wall. I don't think there's wooden supports in it. I imagine maybe somebody at some point culturally has done that. But I don't know if like having wood inside the rammed earth itself was ever done, because it seems like it would make that difficult to ram around the post and really get that seated the way it needs to be. But what the fuck do I know? I'm just playing a video game. So if you have more information on it, please feel free to share. I love learning about that kind of stuff. In fact, once I get off of here, as I've done after countless videos, I'm probably going to go do more Googling. But I did want to have it look like there was some kind of wooden inner wall, or like room facing side to it. Maybe this was inside and a structural support and then they just packed dirt around it. I don't know, man. I just work here. But I felt like that looked nicer than just having the rammed earth just standing there non-menacingly. And then we have some wattle fence to tie into it. Beams laying down just to make it look like the rafters have fallen. And again, a lot of the roof is missing. Just a very old, dilapidated building. The chimney itself has fallen and the bricks have broken. Somebody get it a life alert. It cannot get up on its own. Over here is a charcoal kiln. Very simple. It's actually, I don't think this would actually work. I built it on twos, or it's split between half blocks, so I don't think it would function. But maybe it would. You'd have to put 2 blocks up here to cover it, or 4 or something like that. But maybe you could get that to work. But I just wanted it for the aesthetic, and I needed it to be smaller, and so chiseling that down into a dome just worked. Whatever Todd Howard said. It just works. And then assets from creative, like the ruined, fucked up crate, and then the messed up bloomery, the ruined bellows, reed chest, that kind of stuff. I do hate that there's not a ruined version of the forge, but the bismuth anvil does look kind of old and grimy, so I did go ahead and utilize that. And you can see there's some internal, like maybe this is not rammed earth, maybe this is plaster or some kind of gray daub and not the rammed earth, and it's plastered, not to use the word again, onto the wall itself. But take whatever you want from it. I have some posts standing here. I chiseled the what is this, Kapok onto it to make it look like it's moldy or mossy. And then there's mods for it, but I just use creative to actually put the moss texture on stuff. It's really nice since the 122 update. But if you have a mod for it, this is achievable in survival. And if you're in single player, then of course you can just hop over to creative and make your life a little bit easier and make your stuff a little bit more artistic. No harm, no foul. But I felt like I needed to show this off. Again, it doesn't deserve its own video, but again, this whole thing probably took way longer than I wanted it to. But if you're not here for this, I understand. I just thought this might be something worth seeing. And also, I kind of owe it to your personal shadow, because he suggested that I do it, or they suggested that I do it, and I did it. So here's the evidence. You can't tell me I didn't. Fuck you. Thank you. Anyway, we're going to switch over to doing the Salt Graduation Tower. Alright, so this is... Oh, we need to slow back down. This is a... I don't want to say an earlier build, but is not one of my most recent builds either. It has been a minute since I've done this. So some of these tricks have been applied later, and some of the things I have just completely abandoned altogether. But you can kind of see some of my favorite color palettes emerging here, and some of my more regular tendencies are also being established as, I guess, an ad hoc doctrine, because I do have like a rule set that I go through, and I made a video sort of talking about it, but I don't know. I kind of just apply the same logic and ask the same questions every time. Like, what do I have? Where does it go? How much room? Do I have the resources for it? What do I need this space to do? Can it do other stuff? And then everything just kind of unfolds from there. I don't ever like take a floor plan like, oh, I need this to go here. This needs to be this many blocks. Yada yada yada. I kind of just vibe it, man. I really do. I just start throwing stuff together, and then if I am trying to do something where like, oh, well, I need this much space for this tool, and I don't have enough space there, then I'll make an edit to the floor plan or something. But 9 times out of 10, I just shove it wherever it fits, baby. Giggity. But if you have a more methodical way of going about it, you might avoid a lot of the problems that I run into. But then you don't end up having the solutions that I have, and so some of the things that I do that I think look cool, you'll probably just end up avoiding doing altogether. Which is one of the reasons why I'm showing these things off in these videos, is because I have no other way to show you the thing. You know what I mean? Would you think to do this type of stuff if it was not presented to you? I would have never built excuse me, I have a cough. I would have never built the salt graduation tower we're looking at if Cryo had not suggested it to me. So that being said, you probably now have never even thought of a salt graduation tower. Maybe you did. Maybe you didn't. Maybe if you did, you didn't think to build it this way. And now you're going to see all these other things that come together into this build. And maybe you don't apply it to a salt graduation tower. Maybe you apply it to some other kind of structure with similar, chiseling or similar structure or similar color palette. Whatever you take from this that you find useful, use it. That's the whole point. I'm really not sure where to start with this building. I did showcase the outside. Oh, that was a weird glitch. But yeah, let's just go right here. Okay, so right here is just some busy work. I really don't know what the implication here is. Maybe this is wastewater. Maybe this is where water is, brought up from the ground or something. Somehow this interacts with this thing, a big old tank. And this big old tank doesn't actually literally connect to anything except for the outside here. Don't ask too many questions. Again, it's all about the implication. I don't have to recreate it one-to-one. It's just about making it look like it's busy. But that's also next to this thing right here, and perhaps this is boiling the brine or something like that. Maybe it is waste. Maybe it's processing something. You should look up the salt graduation process. There's all kinds of cool facets that go into it. The issue that I ran into is that I have a certain quasi-proto-industrial, semi-colonial, I hope that's enough adjectives, type of build going on. And so you could do this really medieval, or you could do it how I've done it, where it's a little bit industrialized. And that maybe creates a juxtaposition that might not quite work for everybody. So again, take what you want, leave what you don't. But over here is where I guess you would heat up the salt and separate, like you boil the water away and you'd be left with the salt itself. And so as you heat it up, it gets more and more white, I believe is the implication here. And this right here would just be raw, like brine water, which I guess is the stuff that you use in this game to salt your meat, or not your meat, the pickles. You don't salt them, you cure the pickles. You pickle the cucumber. You pickle the vegetables. Man, that was killing me. Holy shit. Anybody else would have edited that out, but I'm keeping it in for authenticity. But yeah, that was fucking me up. So you have the brine water from the stuff, and we'll talk about that in a second, and then you heat it up, and then here's a kitchen with other stuff that you would need to like process the salt, clean the salt, sift it, put it in the bags or buckets or barrels, whatever it is you're doing. This room just gets used as storage for salt and brine, and then also we put logs and firewood in here, and you'll see in a second why we do that. But then also there's just room for tool storage. So it's just multiple functions stashed into a building that kind of just has a similar theme. Like salt is here. So the salt and the brine and all that is produced here, as opposed to being done in the chemical factory. This is just like our chemical plant, but just for those items. And the salts and the sticks and the logs will make sense here in a second. But again, there's just another workstation on some chiseled cabinetry. There's more tool racks up here with various cow tools. I'm a big fan of the cow tool aesthetic, just making things that look close enough to tools without having to actually think too hard about it. Really nice trick. And then there's some industrial looking supports, and there's some pipes going through that looks like it, does stuff. and that pipe maybe goes into the wall, and maybe that's what actually connects to this guy over here. You know, it's all about the implication. I'm really big fan of these windows. I have copy and pasted them onto a couple of the more industrial-like builds in our estate, just because I really fuck with them. I like them a lot. More storage, mostly for salt. Again, the redwood crates is my universal symbol that's where salt is stored, because halite is pink and the redwood crate is pink. I hope that doesn't not make sense. It makes perfect sense to me. One more thing before I go over here. This right here is like vents, I guess, air vents to pull up all the smoke and everything out of here to go up into the chimneys, because I didn't want to have a direct chimney over it. I thought that right there looked cool, and then I didn't want to have just a gap, so I put some fans, and maybe these fans are powered by, you know, the temporal gears or something. I have a whole lore going on to how we have this electricity and industrialization going on in our little server that we have here, but it's just, there's fans. It just looks like it's a giant stove oven range hood cover thing. I'm very articulate. I'm usually much better than this, but I'm a bit under the weather. In here is just a kiln for actually grinding up the halite stone, again, so we can process the salt. And it just, except for this side, because you gotta be able to walk through here. Just the kilns catch it, or not the kilns, the hoppers catch it from the kiln, and then put it into the crates. Really nice. And then, of course, you can put the salt up there. And then back here is just where this stuff goes through. I just made it look more complicated with the gears and stuff, and then my chiseled handles and levers and all that jazz. But the gear shaft runs underneath the floor and goes outside to the water wheel, which I will show off in more detail here in a minute. And then another workstation where I guess you could press honey or whatever it is you had in here if you wanted to while you're in here doing stuff. But really, I just felt like the press just looks like a tool, and it looks like, you know, an appliance or something. Something is done here, and so I put it there with some buckets and crates, and it looks like something is done here. And that's what 90% of this kind of stuff is making it look like it does more than what it does. In here is, goddamn, man, this was a pain in the ass. I did end up switching to creative to copy and paste a lot of this shit because it was just repetitive and it was breaking my brain. But chiseling the stuff outright initially itself was also a bitch. A labor of love, I guess. But down here we have these chiseled funnel hopper drain things for the water to the brine to collect and everything. Because the way this works, and I'll go ahead and talk about this while I'm going up, you basically just have a stack of brambles, you know, bush like bush cuttings and stuff like that, sticks, which is why we would store sticks on this, which is why this had to be solid, which is why there's glass there. Before the 122 update, it was much more invisible, so now this is a little bit fucking annoying, but I still wanted it to look graded, and we can just store sticks and firewood and stuff on here. So this is just stick and firewood storage, and it's so massive that we never fill it up before we come in here and get stuff. So it is what it is. This also, from the pictures I've seen, it looks like the brambles kind of actually just like stick out, or there's very rough wooden walls encasing the stuff in, just enough to keep stuff from falling out of the tower. And so I thought the wattle fence looked enough like brambles poking out, or the primitive wooden walls holding things in. But you just have a stack of wood, and then at the top you'd have some kind of apparatus or system. I think back in the day this used literally just have buckets of it being poured over top of salt water. And that salt water slowly goes down the stacks of sticks, and I guess in colder temperatures, or maybe just because of the nature of things. Oh, well, you can't actually go that way because of that lever. Just because of the way it's built, the water and stuff like collects, like it goes down the brambles or something and leaves behind the salt at the bottom, and then you can just scoop up the salt, and then it's all moist, and it's like wet salt and everything because it's not 100% dry when it comes off the brambles as it works its way down the tiers. But by the time it gets to the bottom, which I'll show you the bottom here in a minute, it's moist salt. And so then at that point, all you have to do is, from my understanding again, is use those pans to heat it up and get the moisture out of it, and then you have dried, you know, salt crystals, and then you use that as, you know, you would regularly use salt. And I think they used to do that along the North Sea and the Baltic Seas, and I believe there might even be like inland brine pools or something, like maybe like just salty water along rivers or something in Poland, and that was where a lot of the brine was coming from. I don't think they would like make brine and do this because that wouldn't make sense. But I did chisel up here some kind of faux looking apparatus to make it look like we sprinkle the brine water onto the sticks that would be stacked up here, and then it trickles its way down like Ronald Reagan's economic plan. And then at the very bottom, you have the wet scrapings of salt that you would then cook and then use as either currency if you were Roman or for culinary purposes. Salt's main function was, I guess, historically for the purpose of making food last, and that's why it had monetary value, which is why somebody might be worth their salt. But that's really the building, other than the bottom, which is in here, which I should have showed up a second ago, where this stuff drips down. This is where the salt collects. You can see I have a halite stone placed, and then I've actually chiseled some different pink daub and halite and some other kind of pink block. I think it's like marble or something. Pink marble. To make it look like, and then like here's some brine dripping. Just to make it look like there's salt collected in the bottom here. Like when this would fill up or get enough of a layer in here, you would use these tools. Scrape it out, put it on the pans. You'd have some brine water here, and then you would just boil this stuff out and then process it, and then bam! Well, salt. You got salt. So that doesn't actually happen in the game. I wish there was a way you could take salt water from the sea and make it into usable salt or brine even, but you cannot. So this is just decoration mostly, but I ended up making it functional, which is kind of part of my, I guess, my theory on building in this game. And just some structural bits on the outside, again, to make it look like it's all, buttoned up and battered down. And then the water wheel, of course, just this guy right here. I did cheat to put the rapids, because again, very water-centric area, and there was no rapid spawn in this area because this was pre-122. So once we got them, I just had to put them here. And having a water wheel here to power this guy looks so much better than putting another tower off to the side and having a windmill power it, or slapping windmills on the side of this tower. That just was not going to work. So this was definitely the way to go. Over here is maybe where brine water also could be poured out in smaller amounts, or excess comes out through here, and then you can scrape it up and do other processing. Just another way to show that there's, salt stuff happening over here, really, and then some storage on the side. Really not a whole lot to talk about it. As I've said it 100 times now in this video, it is mostly decorative. I did fit function into it, but there are a lot of things that this game has as processes that do not really get expanded upon, like in the game world. It often takes place in your crafting grid, or inside a one singular barrel, or in the cooking pot. Like to make paper, you just do it in a barrel. There's no paper making process or anything like that. And so, even though there's no actual process to salt graduation, I do think it's a nice little bit of world building, a little bit of lore, and then again, having actual salt storage, having it also be stick storage, for instance, and then also a place to make the brine that we use to pickle the stuff. Just seemed like a nice way to wrap all this stuff together in the form of design, decoration, and form and function, all that coming together. Really not sure what else to talk about it. We could talk about the color palette if you want. I just felt like the brown shingles looked really good on the darker brown daub, and then the brown daub just looks good with the clinker bricks. Huge fucking fan of the clinker bricks. I don't know if it's just that they seem to be if it's just that they're darker, or was that they have more variation to the darkness of their bricks on the texture. I don't know what it is. But I also grew up around southern Indiana, and a lot of the brick structures around here look a lot closer to this than even the red brick or the brown brick, really. So this just, I guess, has a sense of comfort and familiarity associated with it on my end. But working from the clinker bricks, bam, brown daub. Oh, brown daub, bam. Why not brown shingles? I guess these might actually be tan. Tan and brown confuse me in this. I'm not sure. I'm actually not sure. I think these are tan. This is brown. This is tan. You see how Very not different. Very not different. So it is a lighter tan, but really you could have put brown on here and it probably would look just the same. It looks so close to me, I can barely even tell the difference, and I have both colors right here next to me. So take from that what you will. Again, if there's anything from this video that I showed off but I did not go over it in enough detail, let me know and I'll be happy to go over it again. If there's anything in the background of this video that you think looks super interesting, let me know and I'll make a video on it if I haven't already, or I'll direct you to one of the videos that I've already made. Just as I'm wrapping up, here's my typical Midwestern goodbyes, which are usually about as long as my fucking intros, which take forever. I'm just going to walk around the Salt Graduation Tower one more time, let you guys take it all in. Feel free to pause it at any point and use it for screenshots or just to have it up on the screen while you're doing your builds. I mean, I did this a certain way because of limitations in resources and space and laying things out and being too lazy to change it later. So your Salt Graduation Tower and process, I'm not sure what this part of the building is called. This is the Salt Graduation Tower. This is something else. A salt factory, a salt flat, I'm really not sure what it's called. But there's so many different ways to make salt. It was one of the earliest industrialization efforts of mankind because we really like salty foods. So it's really cool to have this in here. And again, yours may look different, but if it does, I would like to see it all the same. Cryo Stratos inspired me to make this one, and hopefully I will inspire you to make your own. And again, this stuff that I'm talking about here, like the way I do things, you don't necessarily have to apply it to a Salt Graduation Tower. So if you happen to make a windmill or a granary or something else that you just took inspiration from this build to do it, again, let me know. Tag me in Reddit, send me a message, link in the comment, anything. I would just love to interact with it. I'm on the Reddit for this game and also in the Discord for it. I just love looking at that stuff. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, putting up with the rambling. I hope it was not too much, and I hope that the content of this video, I hope there was something useful in it for any of you, for all of you, in any amount. Again, thank you all so much for giving me your attention. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if any of this was up your alley. I appreciate every single goddamn fucking one of you. Stay alive and stay happy.